The next distinctive aspect of Buddhism that I would like to discuss with you is it's atheism. As far as I know, Buddhism is the only religion that is atheist, that doesn't comprise as an essential element the belief in any God. First of all, is that correct? And can you expand on this aspect of Buddhism?
Yeah. Well, look, in part, it depends what you want to call a religion. It's very hard to come up with a definition of a religion. In many ways, it seems to be what Wittgenstein would call a family resemblance notion. Yeah. So, for example, Australian Aboriginals have a view which is called the Dreamtime, which is a story about, how they and the world got to be where it is and the process of creation. And it involves stories and rituals and so on. Is that religion? Well, yeah, you can see it like that. Does it have a God? Well, not at all in the Western sense. They're a kind of spirits, supernatural creatures, but nothing that we want to call a God in any sense, at least as I understand it. So it may not be that Buddhism is the only religion that doesn't believe in God. But certainly of the major world religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, if you want to count that a major world religion, Hinduism, those are all theistic. Buddhism is not. So Buddhism arises in India in the 5th, 6th century, and it arises as a reaction against Hinduism. So there are two views which arise around the same time, which reject the authority of the Vedas, which define Orthodox Hinduism. One is Buddhism and one is Jainism. So these are sometimes called the heterodox Indian philosophies. And Buddhism in particular rejected two central planks of Hinduism. One is the existence of a self, an Atman, which we already talked about, and one is the existence of a God, Brahman. So it rejects this. Hinduism is often thought of as polytheistic. That's not very accurate. Certainly in popular culture it is, but in philosophical terms, it's really a monotheism. There's one Godhead, Brahman, okay? And the other things are kind of aspects or avatars of this. It's a bit like, Christianity, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. They're not three gods, they're just three aspects of the same Godhead. Really, the philosophical view of Hinduism it's a bit like that, even though in popular culture it doesn't seem that way. But anyway, Buddhism is defined by rejecting these two central pillars of Hindu thought. It retains a lot of the other aspects of Hinduism, like the views about karma, rebirth, samsara, enlightenment, and so on. But Buddhism is an atheist religion. Now, often various Buddhist sects have a kind of cosmology, which you'll find. So if you go to Tibetan temples or some Japanese temples, you will see wrathful godlike figures or benign godlike figures. Sometimes these are called deities, but they're not anything that a Western philosopher would regard as a god. They're not immortal. They live on a different kind of plane, or at least place to humans, and they're kind of powerful, but they're not normally thought of as creating the world. Often they protect good guys like bodhisattvas, because they're not immortal, they can die, and when people die, they're gonna experience the results of their actions in life, and they can be born as a different kind of being. And being a person is the best thing to be, not being a god, just because you can do all those things which help you to achieve enlightenment. So, you will see in some Buddhist cosmologies things which look like kind of divinities, but they're not. They're not anything that a Western philosopher would recognize as a god. So yeah, it's an atheist religion.
Was it debated? I mean, is there any distinctively Buddhist argument against the existence of God?
It's actually hard to find one. You really have to extrapolate from other things. But let's start with this view that everything is impermanent. No, let's take it one step back. In many ways, Buddhism is highly naturalistic. All that exists are things in the causal flux. And everything in the causal flux is impermanent. So everything comes into existence when causes and conditions are ripe, is maintained in existence for a time while the conditions are favourable, and then goes out of existence when the causes and conditions say so. Everything is impermanent. Now, if you believe that everything is impermanent, then obviously there's no God, because God would have to be impermanent. When you get to Mahayana, there's this doctrine of emptiness, which we haven't talked about yet. But in a nutshell, to be empty is to have no self-subsistence, as it were, no intrinsic existence. What you are in terms of your relationship to other things. So in sort of Western terms, to exist with this kind of self-existence is to be a substance. And Mahayana philosophy is very insistent that there's nothing of this kind. And Nagarjuna, who pushed this line hardest, has a bunch of arguments for this. Now, if you think that everything is what it is simply by relating to other things, then any kind of Western conception of deity has to go out the window, just because God has to be the most fundamental thing which exists in and of itself. To suppose that God depends on God's creatures is the kind of heresy that gets you burnt in the Middle Ages in Europe. So, as I say, I'm trying to remember arguments where in Buddhist texts where these things are spelt out, and I'm blanking. I can't think of any. So you've really got to sort of extrapolate from more fundamental principles.